Lee Pico, thank you very much for joining me today.
Hey, well, thanks for having me here, Dan.
Now, you know what? It's interesting. We were just talking, and you're not my normal guest, and that I can say that after 6 episodes, right? So that's just you can say that. But normally I'm dealing with a lot of field guys in safety and getting into some leadership and some HR. But when we started talking, we had a great conversation about mental health and about one of your projects that I think is something that you're very passionate about. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about that, and that's ThaloForge.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yes, but before we get there, man, tell me you're obviously very passionate about leadership, and you took an MBA in leadership and in a safety role. Is that right?
Yeah. At a specialty stream in health and safety leadership. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, what got you involved in that lane?
I mean, on my educational journey of learning about, not just health and safety, but the leadership aspect of it, I was got to a point where I just kind of felt like I was hitting a ceiling when it came to knowledge and influence in leadership, right? I mean, you can only read so many books and apply so many things. And I started looking around for some programs and came across this MBA program. And yeah, it really spoke to me. It wasn't about trying to climb a ladder or anything like that. I just wanted to expand my knowledge. And so I took the leap, of course, when at the time I was, in my, early 30s and looked at the time it would take and had a full-time job and kids and a marriage and so it was a
Full
little.
catastrophe.
What's that?
The full catastrophe.
Yeah, that's right. But you know had support from the family and so went ahead and did it, and what it really provided me was a different level of thinking. Your undergraduate type programs is all about learning the text, memorizing the text, and then getting tested on your memorization understanding of it. Where the MBA program, the graduate level of learning, was quite interesting because it was, here's your textbooks, read these chapters, do this research, and then now essentially write a paper on whether you agree or disagree with it. But if you disagree with it, you need to go find your own peer-reviewed research to go and do that. So it really provided this different perspective on learning, and so it was a game changer for me. And after that, I started doing some blogging and stuff for a bit because it really kept that. It wasn't just about reading something online and being okay, that's now my opinion. It was, no, I'm going to go do some research on this, and being able to you, a form of journaling essentially is what I think of blogging is. And yeah, it just really expanded my horizons when it came to how you approach leadership at the end of the day.
Wonderful. And then that took you towards really a focus on men and mental health.
Yeah, well, the men and mental health piece, that actually came much more recently. And so I would say my leadership journey was along the lines of getting exposed to good leaders and not so good leaders early in my career. But even those not so good leaders really challenged me to show up a certain way. And so I remember one of them once on a plane, we were flying out somewhere, and he told me, he goes, I need you to be, this, a safety leader that can really paint a picture for the future for everybody that's working for us, all the craft, all our supervisor, you know, so they can be empowered and enrolled in why we should be working safe. And when he talked about this whole vision aspect and painting this better future, I was stumped. I didn't know how to do that. And so I took it on as a challenge, and that's what really started having me read stuff on leadership and how to do that. And that was a big first eye opening for me when I thought about, wow, here I am in a leadership role, and I'm being asked to do something that is what leaders should be doing, but I don't know how to do it. And so how often does it happen in industry where really good contributors, people who are really good at what they do, get promoted into positions where they need to paint those better pictures for the future. Talk about values, get people to see themselves, how their contributions to that better future benefits them. And most of the time they don't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. It's not an innate ability. It's not something that we're taught. You got to typically go out and seek it for yourself, or if you work for a really good organization, they may put you through some leadership training that helps you with that. So that kind of took my leadership to another level. Then I spent some time overseas.
So just on that, well, while we're here, because I don't want to forget. So then you're focusing on creating a vision for your people, for your workers, for the people that you're leading, and that vision is a unified vision that they can all buy into, where they can find a way to support with their strengths. Is that what you're laying out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Right,
it makes it just as an old ball player, right? It makes sense to me. Like I get a kick out of the CFL wearing diversity is our strength shirts.
right,
Diversity is our strength. Well, diversity is a great strength if you have a focused goal.
right.
If you don't have a goal and you don't share the same goal, then diversity is not a strength. It's really not. It becomes a real problem, right? Because everybody's doing this,
Yeah,
right? So that leadership piece it's huge. I think you're right. I think it's one of those soft skills that shouldn't be called soft because it makes it seem like it's not important, but it's super important in terms of painting that picture and helping people. How do I contribute to this team, right? Okay, I just wanted to flush that out. Is that accurate?
yeah, absolutely. Right, because
Okay.
the interesting thing about the challenge of safety and the draw to it is we're hunters and gatherers by nature, as being a human being. So we're always just on default needing to get more of what we don't have. And so when it comes to business, when it comes to projects and construction, even, what are we constantly chasing? And what do we need more of? We need more schedule, right? We're trying to constantly buy ourselves more time. We are trying to get money, save money. We're trying to always get more progress, work faster. And so all these things, when we show up at work in the morning, there's things to get at, there's things to gain, there's things to do. When it comes to your health and safety, you already have it. There's no gaining more safety, right? There's no gaining more health. And so the only times we're really naturally focused on our health and safety when it's at risk, not a inauthentic risk where this might happen or what ifs. It's that saber-toothed tiger in the grass, right? It's when you feel that your safety is at risk. It's why people who are first exposed to working at heights for the first time or working to big equipment and have never worked around it before, there's that heightened sense of awareness that, okay, what do I need to do to keep myself safe? No different when you're driving a car for the first time. There's that heightened sense of, okay, I need to keep my eyes on the road and everything. But once you get used to it, once that perception of that risk diminishes, your mind wanders because you're not worried about it anymore. You're more focused on driving faster or, you know, running the yellow, so this way you can try and save that time. And so being able to paint that picture, that vision, and get people enrolled in it helps them have that understanding of why they need to take accountability for it, because it's not natural for our brains to just be focused on our health and safety all the time, especially when we're trying to gain all this other stuff.
Yeah,
So
we're programmed to be lazy. And as far as I'm concerned, and
yeah,
I think I've read it too. I don't remember where because I'm not smart enough to remember where, but we're programmed. Once you have a system down, it's how can I shortcut that system as much as possible. Then
yeah,
you get into normalization of deviance. Well, if you keep on running that stop sign right outside your door, it's a block away from my house. 4 o'clock in the morning is when I leave the house. There's never anybody there. I'm gonna just slow down to 5. No, I'm just gonna slow down. Well, I'll slow down to 10. Well, I'll slow down to 20. And after a while, you're just going through that stop sign,
yeah,
50.
yeah,
And then eventually that catches up to you, right? So it's a real balancing act, man. That's
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
really.
There's maybe a bit of a diversion, but still related to tactics when it comes to health and safety. Is we'll put up signs and posters to help get people to think about things, and they'll see it at first, but then after time, your brain doesn't see it anymore, and you can swap them out right away. But there's some research that was done on it where If you want to keep people focused on messaging like that, you need to take the signs down for a period of time so that all of a sudden people start to recognize, oh, there's nothing there. There used to be something there. There's nothing there anymore. Then when something new comes up, then they pay attention to it. But if you just swap it out immediately,
Mm-hmm.
they won't notice that it's new, right? And
Yeah, so it just makes logical sense if you just
yeah,
think about walking by a sign every day, right?
yeah, yeah. And so the psychology behind, uh, I mean, humans, but health and safety has always really interested me. So that took me down that path of learning about why we need to, create these, visions and kind of be that visionary leader, and the importance of it, and that a lot of people in those roles don't really know how to be a leader. They learn how to be a good manager, but not a good leader. And those two are distinctly different. It was one of the conversations that we were having before. I'm sure we'll get into at one point. Um, and then the next shift for me was when I was overseas, working in Asia, and the the health and safety performance there was very low. And instead of taking approach of implementing a whole bunch of systems and processes and things that were the people there, even supervision, those in authority didn't understand, really worked on the hearts and the minds, right? Starting off with behavioral safety versus starting off with engineering and administrative processes and systems. And in a short period of time, had really good results. And then we were able to start putting in systems and process because we had buy in from those that were in positions of authority. And then I came back to Canada, and I was working at a large organization and in a refinery, and was really wondering, why are we struggling with this sense of buy-in this way? And then that really, I started asking these questions, and it got me down a path of transformational leadership. So I took some courses and some seminars, got connected with a global organization that works on transformational leadership. They work for very large companies, like Boeing and so on in the world, and that really started to shift this concept of, leadership happening out here externally, what it looks like, to really what leadership feels like, the inner game of leadership. And then that
From the
was
perspective of the worker, sorry, from the perspective of the worker or from the perspective of the leader?
perspective of the leader,
Okay.
right? So we tend to think of leadership a lot from a perspective of results. So we need to lead a certain way in order to, get a worker to do something that we want them to do. And when we take a look at the inner game, then it's all about, what do I want to create as a leader, versus just about what do I want to happen. What change do I want? Instead of the outer game running the inner game, how does my inner game actually influence and cause a, things to happen in the outer game? And so that was the next kind of level up for me in my leadership, where I started to hear conversations that, something is trying to emerge in a dialogue that isn't happening, because I was able to shift, or I should say be aware of how we tend to listen, right? If you start to realize that in our listening we have right wrong conversations happening in my head, or agree disagree conversations, those are filters, and that's all you're listening for. Once you have awareness of that, you can put those aside and be like, what's really trying to be said here, you know? And um, that then, yeah, it elevated me in a lot of ways. And then now we talk about, yes, the question about the men's health piece. My next level of transformation has really been,
So
this.
I want to get to that, and I want to get to that next. But before we do, I want to understand. So, like, I mean, you're driven people inspire me, and driven people who have that innate curiosity about how to get not only to the root of the problem or the root of the issue, but also how do I explore this and overcome and create, like you're creating a system in this new, we're going to talk about your men's group.
Hmm.
So where is the passion for, like, because the men's group is, it's like you're taking all of this knowledge that you have and you've been studying for years, and you've obviously had the support of your family, but I mean that's a lot of support, man, because we're supposed to be out there slugging and just and making money too, right? Like there's a lot of things that you've sacrificed to do this. You've taken all that, and now you're creating the ThaloForge. And so what inspired you to get so interested in what's going on with the mental health and with the well-being of men to do this?
Yeah, I went through my own challenges with mental health, and it essentially brought a breakdown to my marriage. Uh, I got to a point in my life where I felt like that I wasn't happy. There was a lot of blame that happened in my life where I was looking circumstantially at everything that was happening. And, at the end of the day, I, I was avoiding a lot in my life. And so I thought I needed to escape a lot of negative emotion that was happening in my life. And I thought it was because of my marriage, and I actually ended up leaving. And in that time frame that I left, I realized that feeling that I had, that needing to escape, as if I was caged. I was still there. I was still caged. I still had that knots in me. I still didn't feel like I was free. And that's when I started to realize that the cage was really inside of me versus outside of me. And I started reaching out to help, and you know, reached out to a group type of counseling, dealt with a therapist, did all those things that honestly I should have done a long time ago when things started really affecting me. And I started to learn a lot about myself by being introduced to tools and modalities and different perspectives that I learned. When we talk about tools and modalities of it from a leadership perspective, we learn about a lot of things on how to influence others, but we don't learn about the things to really influence ourselves. I started to realize traumas and things from my childhood that, because they were never dealt with, never explored, would show up in my relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
because something like your marriage is one of the most, important, close, vulnerable relationships, they have the potential to show up the most there. And if not dealt with, can cause the most harm. And through my transformation, and one that I'm still going through, I was able to learn some things about myself, able to come have a conversation with my wife about our past, about things that I did, was doing, my behavior, um, realizations that I was having, own some of the blame that I was bringing into the relationship. And we're luckily in a place where we're working on things and coming back stronger together than what we were before. And so my
Right.
passion for that was, there is so many other men that are out there that are dealing with something, and they don't know how to ask for help. There's this premise that being vulnerable, being emotional, is not okay for men to show. And I was stuck in that. I needed to figure it out on my own. I needed to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't fix it, if I need someone else to help me fix it, then that makes me less of a man. And in the reality, it's the opposite, right? Being able to be vulnerable, being able to ask for help, actually is more, manly than not, right? The other is you're hiding. And so that's really what has empowered me and enrolled myself into taking all this stuff that I've learned about leadership and that I've learned about, you going through this experience in my life and bringing it together to be able to help others. And I also believe by doing this, it also continues to help myself as well, because it keeps me in the conversation, because you never know anything, everything, right? You always still don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
by staying in these conversations like that will also continue to help me transform down the road as well.
Thank you. That was amazing honesty and very sincere, and I appreciate that. That's huge. That's when people are passionate about something. There's always a drive there, right? And I think your drive towards men, and one of the reasons that I was inspired to reach out to you, especially to continue on with the podcast after we spoke, is because I have shared some of those same situations, and and I've had a yearning to help men in trouble for years, and it's one of the, just through my speaking. I'm a keynote speaker, and
Mhm.
so I always talk to men, right? Like, that's, if you're sending me out to the oil fields or sending me to a construction site, I'm 90% men, all day long. And as an old football player, you can be sincere about, these are some of the things that I actually had to deal with, and yeah, I sucked in this situation. And these are the mistakes I made, and it's hard for men to say anything like that, right? Um, but I commend you for your work. I think it's a great a great thing to start. I think we need more of it.
Sure.
Okay, so tell us about ThaloForge.
Yeah. So ThaloForge is all about creating a safe space for men to be vulnerable. And when I say vulnerable, it's not necessarily means that it's a place for everybody to come and cry on each other's shoulders, right? It's about being able to put up your hand and just say, I don't know, right? Or I'm in this tough place. And it could be because of a relationship, it could be because of something happening in business or finances or whatever it is. But by building, a big enough community, it's a place where chances are, even though somebody else is going through something, they have a perspective that can apply to your situation. And because there is a stigma towards going out and getting a therapist, and so we need to have more of these communities to help people. And we're we all have dreams, right? We all have this desire to be something better, and sometimes we forget about it because we get caught up in, I think, what still exists in society is a way of men needing to be a certain way. And that could be a certain way where, men need to be, softer and go down a path, or they need to be harder and go down a path. But we need to provide. And sometimes we get lost in that providing, and we lose what we really want to create. Because really, that's our gift as human beings, is our ability to create. And so thalo is an old ancient term, Greek term, that really means desire, will, right? Not desire from a shallow side of things, but a desire where it's this burning desire to do whatever it takes to make what you want to happen. And you couple that with the idea of like a forge, like the process of a blacksmith where they take iron, they put it in a fire. It's requires a lot of hard work. It's hot, it's dark. There's a lot of um, effort that goes into creating, something, to create an axe or a sword or whatever it is that wasn't that thing before. And so it's really a process of taking what it is that you want to create to be a better man in all aspects of being a better man, right? Better husband, better father, better human, and taking the work and doing it and executing on that with having a community that can really help build you up. So this way you can go out, come in, share, learn some things, and then go out into the world, back into your existing environment that has all your old habits there, all your old triggers, be able to try things that work and don't work, come back and then talk about those things and have that support to be like, it's okay. I was having a conversation with a friend this morning, and we were talking about mistakes and how it's hard sometimes to feel like when we're trying to accomplish big things, we're always fearful of making mistakes. And a condition of being human is that we're fallible. One of the things I said to him was, you know, how, 40 plus years, almost of walking up and down stairs, how often do you trip on stairs walking up and down them? How often do you take a misstep, right? Like, have you mastered going up and down stairs to a point where that never happens anymore? Right? So when you trip on a stair, does that make you stupid? Does that make you an idiot? Are you fear you're never going to go up and down stairs again just because you made a mistake? No, it's that reframe and having that community to help support that growth mindset. And so this way, when we as men are facing adversity, we again have the tools equipped to take that adversity instead of allowing it to suck us down and drag us. We see it as an opportunity for growth.
And so it's a community of men that can reach out and be in the same, essentially the same virtual realm and communicate and talk about issues. Is that accurate? Or
Yeah,
is it a local thing? It's not local. It's actually like you're planning on going as wide as you can with it, I take it.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We're starting off with some local, events, just local get-togethers, and but it's going to grow into some virtual online things, and then the idea is to get into something bigger where we're doing more bigger events that people can come to, bring in some guest speakers that can talk on the topic of mental health, and just again it's the power of story. And when we're not exposed to other people's stories, and we feel alone, and then we also suffer alone in silence. And so as soon as we hear that, oh my god, somebody's gone through something that I'm going through right now, and they're still okay, and that gives people hope, right? It gives us hope.
Yeah. One of the challenges. So I am a old school student of life. So
Hmm.
when I got done with my football career, throughout my football career, I was into the greats, the Tony Robbins, the Brian Tracy's for sales. I kept on going to these guys and looking for answers and looking for answers and looking for answers. And the only answers, like they gave all sorts of great advice, and all sorts of great advice about things to do. Um, but one of the things that I never had an answer on, I'll get to my point in a second, just to put an idea to you and to ask maybe you've got something in your program, or maybe I just want to talk about it, just flush it out. Is we talk about being a better man, but what is a better man? And
Mm.
how do you decide what better is? Right. In every instance, how do you actually know? And it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Well, it was about 8 years ago. I was listening to Jordan Peterson, big fan of Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about reading the Bible and using it using it as a compass. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Using it as a compass. Like, why would you use that book as a compass? I mean, I was brought up Catholic, didn't read the Bible much, so I started reading the Bible, and I found that all of a sudden, when questions in life would come to me, the answers were really simple because I had this compass, and it was like, oh, so that would be better than that. And I started using it. And I mean, I am a Christian now. I mean, after years of study and finally surrendering a couple of years ago. But that was always the piece: is how do you know? Like, so I know I've got to strive towards a goal. How do I know that the goal is on target to what is going to make my life more meaningful? To what is
Hmm.
and so for me, the only answer ever that filled me up, that actually stopped all the questioning, was when I realized I wanted to be Christian, and I realized that there's a guy that actually set a good example, and he actually did everything right. And if you follow those rules, it gets real simple. Like
Hmm.
it just takes away all the angst of, what do I tell my son when he asks me about premarital sex? Well, it's pretty simple. Like it's really actually pretty, and there's reasons for it, and it actually makes sense. And if people actually follow the rules, not to go off on a crazy tangent, but it's I don't know. How do you know what's right? How do you know what's good? Do you have that? Is that the group coming together? Is there different philosophical ideas that you bring in because of the community? Is this something that you've an obstacle that you've jumped over before, or is it something you've thought about?
I think when you have any type of community, you get this sense of what's right and what's wrong based on community, which is a form of a society, right? They have these kind of unwritten sense of bylaws. But as we see in the world, there are communities that we would say what they're up to is not right. It's wrong. And so it's a great question. And we develop through our youth and out of our adolescence into adulthood is these sense of like we develop values, and but we never really explore what those are. And
Mm-hmm.
so we can fall into being courted into certain societies and communities because it gives us a sense of purpose, right?
Yes.
And belonging. And if we don't take the time to really explore what those core values are for us, then we never really know what the right thing is, for us, or give us an opportunity to be like, oh, I didn't know that that was a core value driving my behaviors and decisions, but now that I'm aware, I can change it.
Yeah.
And when we talk about core values, I think it's important to distinguish the fact that there's like these professed values, these values that we say are valuable to us because they sound good. But there's also the core values that really drive our decisions. And if we are unaware of what they are, they kind of have us by the back of the neck, and they're the ones pointing us in the direction that we need to go in life. So there are exercises that we do in the group to help the individuals in the community really bring awareness to what are their core values. And we do a really good job of creating a foundation where there is no right or wrong values, right? If you get a core value on family and another person has a core value on money, the family one's not righteous over the money, right? It's not about right and wrong. It's not that type of discussion. It's not a shame discussion. It's just understand that sometimes if you have a core value of money and you realize that you don't have one for your family, and we land on about usually three core values. That's usually where that's really what's driving you. You can realize that, oh wow, I mean, I don't like the fact that I put money over my family. Okay, now because I'm aware that I can start to change that. But chances are that person can take a look in the past and be like, man, look at how much I sacrificed my family unknowingly because I,
I like that you put thought into it. I think men need more people to listen to than Andrew Tate. You know, if you know
fair.
what like it's the we need men that are actually going to go out and have families and have and chase one woman and get married and have a legacy, and and like you came back to your wife, man.
Yeah,
And that was in a time where you didn't have an understanding of what was even going on. Like if you think about it, you know,
yeah,
basically almost a primate compared to the growth that you've had since then, but you made it back to your wife. Now, do you guys have kids?
we do. Yeah.
What do you have? How many kids do you have?
I have two girls, they're twins. Yeah.
Oh, good for you. That's right.
Yeah.
We talked about that. I have twin girls too. I have twin
Yeah, yeah,
girls.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
So
that's wonderful. And how old are they?
they'll be 12 here soon. Yeah.
So
So
before they move out of the house, this is my question I like to throw at everybody. Before they move out of the house, what are the three rules that you want them to know and follow and internalize more than anything else?
hmm, you know, it's a good question. Um, three rules. I mean, I think one is always, respect yourself. Um, it's hard to respect others if you don't respect yourself, and if you don't have respect for yourself, then you can fall into a path of people pleasing, right? Because that's where you're trying to get that worth from. If you don't respect yourself, then you're lacking, some of that worth. Um, Another rule is, I tell my girls, it's like, always do your own research. It's what I learned from my MBA program, right? Just because somebody says something's true, especially now in a world of TikTok and Instagram, and my daughters come to me like, did you know that there's this that exists in the world? And it's like, or this person's capable of this. It's like, well, don't always believe everything that you see or hear. Do some of that critical thinking in your own research. And you know, I think one of the most important ones for me is always be curious, always stay in a state of inquiry, because that's where growth and development comes from. That is a growth mindset. Anything else keeps you fixed in place. It's, I see it now, with my kids, where they're trying to find their place, they're trying to find that independence, and they're in this place of, I know, I know, I know. And there's tons of adults out there that are the same way. They're stuck in that fixed mindset. It gives them safety and security if they have knowledge. And if you can break through from that and embrace curiosity, that sets you up to learn, and that's more true leadership than anything else. And yeah, I think those would be. There's probably lots of others now that we get
Oh,
going, right?
absolutely.
But
But maybe we'll have you back. You can tell me what you think in a year. But
yeah,
it's
ab-
it's
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. This is a great conversation. I find that the time is coming short. But before we go, is there anything that any message you want to lay out to my audience?
Yeah, I think it's important to you know to tie a knot in the bow of the ThaloForge, just because it gets labeled as a man's group, and then it's like, well, what happens in a man's group? And so it, our core value in this group is just about growth and development. It's not trying to skew people's opinions. There's no agenda that I think occurs with some all men's groups that are out there in the world. This is genuinely about creating a world of better men that are able to strip ego, embrace vulnerability, and grow and develop on a continuous basis. And yeah, there'll be a podcast starting soon. I think when we talked, it was going to be a ThaloForge podcast, but it's being reinvented to just be more holistic on leadership. And we'll have topics of bringing leadership into your life for men. We'll talk about ThaloForge, but there'll be other topics there about leadership as a parent. How do you bring parental leadership into your life, financial leadership into your life, and business leadership into your life. We'll be talking about all different aspects of that, and have some great guests on to talk about that as well. So that'll be coming out pretty soon.
Well, when you do launch, let me know, and we'll have a quick 10 minute, and we'll
Sure.
do an interview, and I'll put it out for my limited fan base. But it's growing. We're gonna grow these things, Lee. That's how it works, right?
Absolutely, Dan. Yeah, I look forward to you coming on and being a guest on mine.
Love to. Any way I can help. I think it's a great program. I think it's a great opportunity, and yeah, if I can help, if we can help people together, I do take what you said seriously about men's groups have gotten historically a bad rap.
Hmm.
Um, but I notice on my feeds, I find that most of the feeds are about quitting drinking. They're not about
Yeah.
drinks, right? And there's all sorts of men who are talking about health and fitness, and not in the old way of like, and nothing against David Goggins because he kicked my ass, but not in the old way of like, just do it, right? The Jocko Willink stuff. Like I really like those guys, and there's a place for that, but there is a need for us to show that what, yeah, we have to work. We have to work through this, and what we're working through is our own journey. It's a
Yep.
tough one. And that's the adventure of your lifetime, as Jordan Peterson say. If you tell the truth, it's the adventure of your lifetime. But tell the
You,
truth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a journey of changing my life right now, as I've hinted to, and a huge part of changing your life, it's a lot more complex and harder than this, but it is as simple as changing your body and your mind. You want to change your life, you need to change your body and your mind. And it's a combination of working on your psychology, right? It's getting those, different modalities, learning new perspectives, changing your attitude, but it's also engaging your body. It's moving, it's exercising, right? There's all different types of methods of working out, but your psychology and your physiology are so connected that if you only work on one and leave the other one absent, you don't touch that, then you're not going to see those big changes occur in your life.
I agree 100%. Tell you what, if I haven't worked out in a day, my wife gets mad. She's like, "You go to the gym, you go to the garage, you go for a walk, you take the dog, get out, go do something," because I'm just not the same guy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's a funny change that happens, and it's like a 12-hour difference, right? I can be the happiest guy in the world in the morning, but yeah, you need that training, and then you got to do the work on your heart and your soul part, right? You got to do that, and we all have our thoughts there in our journeys, but like I say, I'll enjoy watching yours, and anything I can do to help, please let me know.
yeah. You bet, Dan.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lee. Really appreciate your time.
Take care.
All right. You too. Bye bye.